I'm actually pretty sure I had erased this before. A definitive about UltraMAGA, but I might not have. I might have actually uploaded it and I just forgot. But another one, I was thinking about this and I was like, no, you weren't quite using the words correct. There's a better way of putting it. Understanding market economics, the observational language of market economics, so that what you're doing is you're using it as a science. Something about art versus science that I found very interesting with Robert Briffault in The Mothers is that it appears one of the benefits of the way that mutation occurs in men, this is, so I'm also extending this into things I know, that males will have errata on the Y chromosome. And so these mutations that build up, you'll get men, a portion of almost every generation, it seems to correlate with relatively highly intelligent people. And at that end, you'll get people who go schizophrenic. As far as I understand, it's actually correlated to high intelligence. And so say where I live now, I've seen this quite a number of times with young men. So in their 20s, this happens. They seem to get into the party scene, quote unquote, and they start getting a little too odd. And eventually you see them walking around mumbling to themselves, smoking cigarettes, and stuff like that at weird hours and shit. And then eventually they just seem to kind of fade away right in front of you, that they just stand there mumbling and, yeah. Hey, goose. Big old gooses. Or maybe they're big-ass ducks, and I just am really silly. But I like how, at this time in the morning, they're like, oh, I'm not even tripping. I'm not even tripping off of leg thing. Leg thing can't mess with me. I'm huge. You see how big I am? Don't make me bite you. I'll bite you. Squawk. I'll bite you. But anyway. Okay, watch me just catch like a flipper to the head. And poop on me or something as they fly off. But, so, MAGA people, one of the things that started to happen with the right was that there were a lot of conversations that, or there was issues about the world, the phenomenal universe, that what had to be presented was just the fundamental economics of the issue. What are the trade-offs that you are agreeing to? And that was really the issue with what ends up becoming a definitive of MAGA people, is that there has to be an understanding of the import of market economics and economics as an observational science. And so Briffault, with this idea of men having this mutation, this capacity for mutation to occur, but that it also made it so that you could sort of breed men, so that men started being especially good at kind of being lazy, and saving effort and saving labor. And so what ends up being at one time the magical abilities of women to gather herbs, cultivate seeds, figure out how to grow things, such as like that, men instead end up making it actually a science, an observational science, that at this time the animals are fertile. This would definitely coincide with just the capacity, eventually bred capacity, to endure what would be the rigors of such research, having to stand for hours. A lot of this kind of work, this long period of focus that would probably be wordless, and that you find this in a lot of like areas that, I mean, it's really that it's kind of a man's environment of development. Will often, there'll be these long amounts of time where stuff is done in relative quiet, such that it actually is known that women won't get involved in that field because there is so little socialization going on, that it's just uncomfortable. It's an inherently uncomfortable environment or job or something, because it's just, there's just no interaction with anybody until like a certain amount of labor has been accomplished. And then you compare notes with the other people, where you'll find highly intelligent, highly talented women who've invested in education. They'll find happiness at work that requires a large amount of socialization and teamwork to get the job done. And just a tendency, it's something that we now can observe. We have the observational science behind this. So with men turning things from what was an art or magic into science, you end up getting really, I mean, like the reaction of the effeminate and the feminine has an instantaneous reaction to it, and especially effeminates have quite the reaction to the application of just simply economics, the idea of trade-offs to life. That effeminate, creative, idealistic men, they don't like this, because that you can come up with metrics then. And once you get numbers, then somebody can be a loser. And they don't like that, because that's one of the kind of the aspects of the hardship of the creative person. The creative person, there's a certain morale that they have to kind of keep up to be creative. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. There's really, somebody like me that I mostly apply my creativity in a pretty limited fashion. So for me, it's kind of easy to be like, a little flippant about it. But like when people like, this is what drives them, trying to come up with original music, original works of varieties of sorts. That's, it's important. I mean, that's what drives them. And that's hard. That's very difficult. So one of the things now that like I've had to really kind of wrap my mind around is that with what we're seeing of this thing, this UltraMAGA thing, what would be these definitives of it? How would you know what UltraMAGA is compared to anything else or something? And I was like, no, one of these is the understanding of market economics in an observational scientific way. That this isn't some type of conjecture to justify exploiting workers, because there's all these weird kind of Marxist kind of understandings of economics that it becomes then again an art and it's magic. So that nobody's really dealing with, no, investment of your time in a skill actually is supposed to generate a long-term wealth effect. That's what it's supposed to generate, ideally. And that because skill investment is because time, fundamentally time being limited, is valuable, and it's that kind of thing. The application of economics in all realms, that is now almost entirely something that would be considered far right wing in the culture. Even though you would hear this in communities that would typically vote Democratic and have liberal views on a lot of social constraints, this is language almost entirely confined now to the political right. And not even Christian churches of various ethnic minorities any longer sort of present this idea of time stops for no one. That it's like, yeah, and Kevin Samuels really ended up showing kind of this quasi-unrealistic view of thing, like in that, like, Jesus would eventually deliver some of these women a husband, rather than, no, there's economics here involved. There's trade-offs, like, and you have to deal with those trade-offs. So this was just something I was thinking about, because this is really something that people are trying to do, this thing of demonizing, like, the Trumpsters and this, that, and it's like, no, Trump found people who were ready for a change. It was already happening. It was just that, when he came along, one of the things was that this is a new wave of things, and this is where I want to actually bring up Gerald Celente, because only about a year to 2 years before Trump came up, Gerald Celente was calling for a new Medici, a new Renaissance. And he was saying that the only people who could do this are a certain class of wealthy people who really understand what can be done. That they're the only people who really are truly any longer creative. They're creating the businesses and services that actually people really use. That they're not huge, but they're big, and so that's and that was his point. Is he's like, only we can do this, and he wanted people to get in touch with him. And I'm thinking that there were more people like him with a similar understanding of things. There's more we could do here. We're not huge, but we're big enough, and there's enough of us that if slowly but surely we start re-steering this ship nice and quietly with our connections, we could come up with something. We could reshape the world. And the world is being reshaped according to regional market systems. That's really, the regionalism is regional market systems. Countries that have dealt with one another for like the last about 3,000 years. And that these are naturally occurring things. These are real. These are not these treaties that we come up with, these bullshit treaties where a whole bunch of buggering weirdos in suits that Vonderqueer, Elon Vonderqueer had this to say: well, if we would just pay for more of the black and the Muslim, then the people of Europe will thrive and everything will be great. And I must go, for I am getting call about children. Of course, it is very important philanthropic work with the children. Bye-bye. Ciao. That from UN Secretary of Buggery and Flim Flam. All right, I'm going to get going later.